we are now joined via Zoom by Advocate Tertius Wessels. He is the legal director at Strata-g Labor Solutions and will help us unpack how the planned national shutdown affects employers and the protection of employees under Section 77 of the Labor Relations Act. This as the South African Federation of Trade Unions also confirmed its participation in the shutdown. Advocate, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, Flo, and good afternoon to your viewers. Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome, sir. All right, well, the nature of a protest is, of course, to disrupt. Let's talk about Section 77 of the Labor Relations Act. The intention of this particular section is to bring disputing parties together, but it also says, that it shouldn't be burdensome on the workers and employees and affect the economy negatively. But as I started the sentence, I said, that is the point, isn't it, of a shutdown or a protest is to disrupt. You're trying to get a message across. So how do you balance these two, while staying in that framework of Section 77?
100%. I think a protest like the one that we're seeing on Monday is no different to any other ordinary strike action that we are accustomed to. The whole purpose behind it is this concerted retardation or refusal to work in order to remedy some form of grievance. In particular, with the Section 77 protest action, we're talking about the advancements of socio-economic reasons. So where a federation of trade unions is wanting to protest for the purposes of remedying load shedding, rising cost of living, a more favorable living wage, etc. It's something that affects their members in general. Now, NETLAG does make provision for a process that needs to be complied with, and stakeholders at NETLAG ultimately endeavor to resolve whatever issue might arise, but where that issue cannot be resolved, obviously a trade union federation like SABC would then be entitled to embark upon a protest for their cause. And that protest action is then, for all intensive purposes, considered a protected protest action, which effectively means that those wanting to participate in the protest action can do so without any fear of their employers disciplining them for their absence or even dismissing for their participation.
All right, so just for the sake, I think you've kind of explained there, but let's just have it, in normal terms, what the difference then would be between what we see here as a Section 77 strike action and any other strike or protest that we've seen in the past.
So normally ordinary strikes is very specific in that they relate to a specific employer or employers in a specific sector and the employees in that sector where it concerns matters of mutual interest. Now, those mutual interests normally concerns wages or terms and conditions of employment. So it's very specific to those. Where with protest action under Section 77, it's not necessarily issues specific to a group of employees or a particular employer, but it's reasons that in general affect employees, such as, for example, increase in inflation, load shedding, etc. All those things are socio-economic reasons that can ultimately affect the daily lives of ordinary citizens and employees.
Has the EFF and their affiliates and those joining the strike adequately sort of justified their reasoning behind the strike? I heard you talking about the fact that, it is linked to the advancement of socioeconomic reasons. From what I understand, the strike is related to issues like load shedding, which of course would somehow be linked to the economy, and also the issue of President Cyril Ramaphosa. But are those enough justifications when it comes to a Section 77 strike, as you mentioned, the fact of advancing socioeconomic reasons?
So it clearly is enough. I think for the most part, many of us view this protest action by the EFF as purely political in nature. However, SABC in its approach and notification to NETLAG has followed due process as lined out in the Labour Relations Act, and they've indicated the issues that they are protesting about. One of the main issues that they've highlighted is the issue of load shedding, but they've also indicated a better living wage, for example, as being one of those issues. And if one looks at it, it does fall within the ambit of socio-economic reasons. Unfortunately, legislation leaves that definition very broad, which means that basically there's many things that can fall within the ambit of socioeconomic reasons, and there's not a very narrow interpretation as to what would constitute socioeconomic reasons justifying a protected protest.
Advocate, do you foresee any potential fallouts, drawbacks that may arise from this particular strike, whether it is from the striking parties or those, like the police, for example, who are defending, the citizens who are not participating in the strike? Is there potential of there being some sort of a fallout or problems that may arise, even though this is what is called a protected strike? And I heard the EFF deputy president saying that this is a led strike. This is nothing like what we saw in the past where people were looting shops and so forth.
Yeah, I think the EFF has kind of sent out mixed messages for us over the preceding weeks. There's a lot of video footage and messages that have gone about on social media platforms that led to this whole application for an interdict against the protest action at the end of the day, where one picked up the sense of violence and the threat of businesses, if they choose to remain open, to be looted. Now it seems as though the tune of the EFF has sort of changed, and they're kind of promoting that this will be a peaceful demonstration at the end of the day. But, the drawback for many employees is, of course, the fact that those that elect to participate in Monday's protests obviously will have to sacrifice their wage for that particular day, whilst for businesses, it's their ability to continue as effectively and efficiently as possible without now having, with the risk of the employees not coming to work, employees being hampered from coming to work, and all those things adversely affect the financial and operational sustainability of businesses. Yeah. And especially in tough economic climates, you'll find that a lot of businesses that go out of trade, be it one day, do suffer financially and operationally, and ultimately we could potentially see some businesses even embarking upon potential retrenchments.
Advocate, just in closing, I mean, my understanding of Section 77 is also that it is to get, parties to kind of to talk first in hope of solving the dispute relating to socioeconomic challenges, that they can be resolved through some sort of, engagements. I would assume that would precede strike action. Are we in a position where we can say that there has been any kind of parties getting together, talking, or are we long past that? I mean, we've been talking about the justification from the point of the EFF, but what I do understand is that all remedies should have been exhausted before we get to that particular point, if I'm reading the Labor Relations Act correctly there.
100%, and that process has been complied with. The unfortunate reality that we are sitting with is that when one can only seek to resolve any grievances or issues that are brought to the table, provided that it is reasonable. The idea of protesting about an issue such as load shedding at this particular point in time just seems futile. We all know that come Monday's protest, even if all South Africans voluntarily elect to participate in that protest action, is not going to bring an end to load shedding. Yeah. People know that President Cyril Ramaphosa is very unlikely to step down simply because of a particular protest that's going to take place. So the reasons that are being put forward, as much as the stakeholders can get together and in good faith try and remedy or resolve, if the demands are unreasonable, there will simply be no resolution, which means that the issue remains unresolved, which means that the right to partake or engage in this protest action then comes into being.
All right, Advocate, a pleasure having you on your show. We certainly do appreciate your input here on SABC News, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, that is Advocate Tertius Wessels. There's indeed joining us via Zoom and unpacking the issue of Section 77 of the Labor Relations Act on the back, of course, of that national shutdown we are expecting on Monday.